All right, so this deep dive is going to have us going way back. But, like, also, it's so relevant, I think, for right now, you know? Like,
Hmm.
we're talking Tupperware. They filed for bankruptcy
Wow.
after 80 years. I mean, everybody knows Tupperware, or at least they think they do right.
Yeah.
You've got that avocado tureen, like, in the back of your grandma's cabinet, or maybe your parents', right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just this, like, ubiquitous thing. But it's interesting because it really is about more than just containers.
Right.
It was like this whole way of life. And I think it's so fascinating how they did that. And we've got some research here that breaks it down a little bit
Yeah.
because, like, yeah, it was keeping your leftovers fresh, but it was so much more than that. It was like this whole image that they were selling too.
Right. They're tapped into this need for hygiene back then, which was a
Yeah.
huge selling point.
Totally.
But it was also about like making you feel special as a homemaker,
Yes.
like a sense of status even.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Remember those like old ads, you know, and it's like this perfectly put together woman with her, you know, like pearls, and she's like
Yeah.
smiling with her Tupperware.
Yeah. Like you've made it
Yeah.
if you have this.
It's true though. Like it was aspirational, I think, in a way.
Absolutely.
So they were doing all this like emotional benefit marketing before it was even like a thing.
Way before it was a buzzword. Yeah.
But then things changed, right? Like the world that they were selling this to kind of like vanished in a way.
Right. Well, think about it. Like the average household in like the 1950s,
Okay, yeah.
like very traditional family structures,
Right.
stay-at-home moms.
Yeah,
That was their target demographic.
for sure.
And then fast forward, a couple of decades, and the whole thing has just completely changed.
Yeah. I mean, more women in the workforce, smaller families. I read that the average age that women were getting married went from like 20 to 28.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's a completely different world. And that brings us to something else that I thought was really interesting, this research,
Okay.
which is like this decline of the Tupperware party.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, I have to ask, did you ever go to a Tupperware party?
Have you ever been to a library book club?
Okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But seriously, though, do they even still have those?
I don't know. But you hit on something really important, which is that
Yeah.
the party was the brand.
It wasn't just like a way to sell the thing.
Exactly. It was like this whole social fabric that just isn't really around in the same way anymore.
Yeah, you're so right, because it's like if your whole business model hinges on people getting together in their living rooms to buy plastic containers,
Right.
what happens when people don't like do that anymore?
Exactly. And they're not buying the same way. Right.
Yeah.
Like you think about
I feel the
the rise of convenience foods, smaller households. Suddenly it's like you don't need to save your leftovers in the same way.
It's so true. And like they were selling a solution to a problem that people weren't really having as much anymore.
Right.
So that's like one part of it. But then there's also the fact that they were kind of slow to adapt to just like everything else that was changing in the kitchen.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Like new materials,
Yes.
glass, steel
Yeah. They were so tied to plastic.
became very trendy for food storage.
Yeah.
And Tupperware eventually like branched out.
They did, but it always felt kind of weird. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Like
And
they were trying to catch up.
yeah, it wasn't natural. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's not what you're about.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and then there's this like elephant in the room,
Don't deorn it.
the internet, which is like what really I think
Yeah.
like was their downfall in a way because they were so reliant on that in person
Yeah, their whole business model
connection.
was not built for online shopping.
No, and I think it said in the research that they were like incredibly late to the game.
Incredibly late.
Like they were not even trying to have an online presence for a long time.
Right.
Which is so interesting because you think about it now and it's like that's
Like if you're not online, you don't exist.
yeah. But it used to not be that way. So it is kind of interesting to think about.
Like could they have even pivoted?
Right.
Like was it too late?
Yeah, like was their brand just so associated with this like
With the time and a place.
yeah.
They couldn't exist anymore.
Exactly. And this gets to a point that the research made that I thought was really fascinating.
Okay. They actually used this phrase in the research that I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
They say a brand is a result.
Hmm.
It's not like a starting point.
Oh, I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like you don't just decide one day, like my product is iconic.
Right.
It's like this, it's the result of all these choices of how you're connecting with people over time.
Totally. Yeah.
And what's so interesting is like they did such a good job of that, for a while.
They did for a time. Yeah.
But then they just kind of stopped evolving with their customer,
Yeah.
It's like they were selling the 1950s dream to people who weren't
Who weren't buying it.
buying it. Yeah.
Right. It's like they were stuck in this time capsule
Right.
while the world moved on.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you avoid that if you're asking for a friend?
The million-dollar question, right?
Ooh.
I think it goes back to that idea of it being a result.
Okay.
Like you have to constantly be paying attention
Yeah.
to what's changing in the market,
Totally.
to your audience,
Yeah.
to what your competitors are doing.
Right.
And I think it's interesting because, like, they weren't even just competing with other containers.
Right.
They were competing with, like, this whole way of life.
Totally. And it's like suddenly staying in and like prepping all your food wasn't like the default anymore. Like people were busier going out to eat more.
Right.
Like Tupperware, even if their product was good.
Didn't fit in.
It didn't fit into that lifestyle anymore.
Exactly.
In the same way.
Yeah. And, to bring it back to the internet, it wasn't even just about selling online.
Okay.
It was about, like, being present where their customers were spending their time.
That's so true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if your audience is on the internet and you're not,
You're irrelevant.
you're irrelevant. It's like you don't exist.
It's so true. And like, isn't it kind of ironic that we're talking about this on a podcast?
Nice.
Like, what if this is the next Tupperware?
Right.
You know?
Like, this is the thing.
In a few years, it's like, oh, remember podcasts?
Yeah, like we thought this was going to last forever.
Exactly. And
Wow.
now it's like nobody's doing it.
Nobody's listening.
Exactly.
And it's on to the next thing.
Right. Because it's like, that's how these things work.
Yeah.
You know?
It's constantly evolving.
It is.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just be good at what you do.
Yeah.
You have to like keep evolving, keep paying attention.
Be relevant.
Or you become irrelevant.
Exactly.
Which is kind of scary
Yeah, it's true.
when you think about it.
But it makes you think, what brands do you love? That maybe are
Oh.
resting on their laurels a little too much.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm looking at you, brand of cereal that I've been eating since I was a kid, and you have not come out with a new commercial in like a decade.
Right.
Like, come on, get with it. But this isn't about pointing fingers, though.
No, this is a larger conversation about, like,
Yes.
consumerism in general, because, like,
Because we have a part in this.
we do.
Yes.
Every time we buy something,
Yes.
we are basically saying,
Supporting that.
we endorse this.
It's like voting with our dollars.
Exactly.
Which I don't think we always think about,
Right.
Like when you're just like grabbing something off the shelf, you're not thinking about.
Ethics of it.
Yeah, but like all of those choices really add up.
There you go.
Collectively.
Yeah.
And like, it's more than just, am I going to buy this brand or that brand?
It's like, are you supporting companies that align with your values?
Totally.
Like, are they sustainable? Are they ethical?
Yeah. Are they like trying to do something new or are they just like complacent?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like all those little choices.
It all adds up.
They do add up.
Yeah.
Man, okay. So like, big picture, Tupperware, what's the lesson? What do we do with this information?
I think the takeaway for me is stay curious, stay informed, and don't be afraid to, like, question the status quo.
Ooh, I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Tupperware seemed like this inevitable thing.
They did.
It was going to be around forever.
Totally.
But even they had these cracks in their foundation.
They did.
And I think, like, recognizing that, like, whether it's a brand that we love or, like, a system that we're used to, like, that's the first step to change.
Recognizing those cracks. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even the giants can fall.
Absolutely.
And that, like, avocado green is not long for this world.
Well, and who knows? Maybe this is the start of something new, right? Maybe this conversation will spark an idea in one of our listeners who, like, I'm going to create the next
big thing.
Tupperware, but for, like,
For now.
for this generation.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so to our listeners, we leave you with this: what will you create, support, or challenge? The future really is unwritten, and your choices have the power to shape it. So until next time, keep asking those big questions and dive deep into the world around you.